Hello. Hello everyone, welcome to another video of Mömus, where we make stuff for car guys. This is Harvey, he's our team dog. He's gonna help us today with installing some things that I have yet to install. I'm installing them because they're a little bit of a nuisance that they're not there. So one of these things is the rear view camera. Now I clearly said in the navigation install video that to me it's not natural to look at the screen when I'm backing up. I use the mirrors, or I look through the back window, or I use the rear view mirror on the inside. However, the system that we installed in here makes you look at the screen. What do I mean is that any app that you have open, whether it's music, radio, navigation, things like that, it stops the app, it pauses the music, and it turns to a black screen where normally your video feed from the rear view camera would come in, and it looks a little bit unfinished that it's then a black screen. So let's go ahead and install that rear view camera for that reason. At least it looks nice and neat and finished, and it looks like the package is complete and not like some functions are missing. And the second thing is, what I have right here is a USB IBUS reader or decoder. And how this works is you take these wires and you wire this into the actual IBUS system of the car, and you can do that anywhere where there's an IBUS connection. It's the IBUS is the system that runs all the entertainment. So it's either the parking sensors, navigation, board computer, stuff like that, telephone, and you can wire it in anywhere to there. I would suggest to do it close to the head unit, because this USB is going to plug into one of the USB ports of the navigation unit. So you have all of these wires that you have to wire in, and then you plug this into the system, and that should then finally let me use the last board computer functions. I mentioned, for example, already in the test drive video that I can't use the board computer functions, and for resetting my fuel consumption or using the timer or speed limit control, anything like that is now lost. So that's a little bit of a pity, and again it's something that feels unfinished, so I think we should go ahead and plug that in as well. And I got this one from a hint from one of you guys, so thank you very much, Ricardo. So let's go ahead and see if it works. If not, we'll blame Ricardo, that's right. If it doesn't work, then we'll blame Ricardo. But it should work. I've read some good things about it. So we'll start with the rear view camera. Usually the hardest thing about this is finding a nice place to put this where it's also fairly hidden out of sight, and where it's easy to install. So that's the first part that we're gonna have to look at. And the second part that's actually fairly complicated about the install is all of these wires. It's not necessarily that it's a tough job to do, but it's going to take a long time, because we have to take out the carpet, probably the rear bench, and most of the trunk trim to put the cables underneath. So it's not a job that you do in 20 minutes quickly. But it's going to take quite a while. Now, I complained in the navigation install video about the apparent quality of this thing. I said that the wires don't look very good, but I actually read now, did some more research in the documentation that came with it and online, and it seems like the kit comes with 2 versions to install it, and not every wire has to be used. So if we can avoid using those shoddy ones, it would be nice, and then just use the normal connections that are already there. So let's move to the back of the car, and we'll see where to install the camera. So I think the only way for me to install it in a way that I would be happy with it is under here, this ridge where the license plate lights are. You see it has this bracket where some double-sided tape could go, and I think if I use some double-sided tape, good quality one that's also holding the license plate, for example, it's not going to shake loose, and then I don't have to drill, and I can put the cables inside of the license plate light opening, so I also don't have to drill anything for that. Then we can follow the license plate light cables underneath the trunk trim on the inside, and then inside of the rubber tube, follow the cables like that into the interior. I'm gonna have to also take out the rear seat probably to put it underneath the bench and then underneath the carpet. So it's quite a lot of work. Let's get to work. I'm gonna grab some double-sided tape and take some things apart here, and then we can start with cabling this to the inside. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll guide the cables, we'll test on the head unit if it works, and then we'll go for a final install, because it would be a bit stupid if it doesn't work and then it's already glued into place. So let's do that. The kit comes with all the cables you will need to do this. One of them is to intercept the power, and the other one is to put into your video unit, into your head unit video in channel. Okay. So the first thing to do is remove all of these clips before gluing the camera into place, because we're going to see these are actually designed to be used with screwdrivers, so very carefully, not making any scratches in the plastic surrounding it. We want to remove this trim because I'm actually not sure how much space there will be for the cables. So I'm going to remove this trim first and see if we can guide the cables before gluing it in place, and then also can we get the cables underneath this trim into the cabin in a nice and neat way. Okay, so let's take one of the lights out and let's try to put the cables in. So let's take one of the lights out to see if we can route the cables that way. There we go. And we'll take this little guy here and see if we can follow those cables through the trunk lid. Well, it looks very, very tight in my opinion. So the way easiest way to get some cables through the holes in the trunk and the body and so forth is to grab some tape and long screwdriver, fairly long one, and wrap that. You'll wrap it like that. Wrap that all together so that you can work them through holes with this screwdriver. So then we can find the hole there. Then I'll come in with my hand from the other side and grab the whole conjunction. Okay. And it's just a matter of feeding them through. So once you have the cables through the trunk, you then have to connect your power source, that's this one, and in the manual it's advised to take the power from the reverse lights or from the tail lights. So let's go hook that up and then guide that through. But my suggestion would be to already find a way to tuck this under all of the trim and then see if that works with the length, because maybe with all the guiding through all the trim and the rubber grommet and so forth, it will run out of space and then it's already soldered, it's too late. So let's see, do we have enough space? And so this cable that you then still have hanging loose connects to this. That's the video feed into the head unit. So you connect that up like that, and then that one that I complained about that looked like really shoddy last time is not needed, supposedly, because the navigation unit already switches to this feed when reverse is selected. So that's fine, we don't need that. We can probably cable tie it to the other one and hide that in the dashboard. So we'll unhook this and that goes into the car, the other one goes into the reverse lights or the tail lights, and then we should be pretty much good to go. As you saw, we got the cables through the trunk there, and I put them through this opening in here to pass them through. I initially wanted to put them through the rubber hose, but there's just not enough space provided. It's fairly full already in there, so we had to run them through the grommet. And so the wires come out here. I was gonna put them through the rubber hose, but there just isn't enough space, unfortunately. So we have to work them through the grommet here, put enough electrical tape around the wire so that over time when it works up against this ridge in here, that it doesn't actually cut through, but it's a little bit protected. And so we're in the front already. I took the cable through the trunk and I folded down the rear seat and lifted the bench to get the cable under there. And then I just laid it in here past the seat, or at the side of the seat. And what I want to do is measure out how much cable I will need, and then with my trusty trim removal tool just lift up the trim a bit and then squeeze the cable up in there. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it, and then run it all the way into the glove box. First we'll have to see how much we're going to need to reach the head unit, and then we'll tuck the rest of the cable like that. And so we're already in the glove box. I tucked the wires, just like I said, under this trim here at the door, and then I did the rest of the routing like I did in the navigation install video with the Wi-Fi and the GPS cables and the USB. So now I'm gonna have to open the side of the dashboard right there to get to the cable harness of the navigation unit, so that we can finally plug it in. Everything we've done in the navigation install episode we had to do in reverse right here. So we took the wood paneling out so that we can access the covers for the screws and screw the unit out. So I put a little cover on the gear knob so that it can stand on there without making scratches. And that the video feed cable I pulled through like the USB cables and so forth last time as well. Now we just have to look in here. I tucked everything deep down so it wouldn't make noise. Just have to look for the video feed in. No. Yeah, that's this one. And connect that up. And then we have to go back to the back again to do the soldering of the wires to the appropriate cables, and then come back here to test if it works before buttoning it all back up. So let's head back to the back. It's a new day. Yesterday I was testing out the electrical connections for the camera. I took some testing cables and connected those directly to the battery, and then went back to the front here to see if I can get the feed to come on the navigation. And while I was figuring that out, which cable to plug it into, the battery died in the meantime. So apparently the camera does draw quite a lot of current, and so I think it's best to wire it into the reverse light. Only problem with that is, which we're going to have to test, is that the reverse light, or the whole system in this E39, is always getting small electrical pings to test if everything still works. So if in the meantime your reverse bulb were to break, then you get the message on the board computer. And I don't know if this pinging signal will actually trigger the camera on each time, and then it would switch into the reversing mode on the navigation. So that's something we're gonna have to test a little bit. We'll keep it running for a bit, for example, and see if that actually happens. So after a bit more playing around in here with the cables, it turns out that it's actually supposed to be connected to the camera in and not the video in. The video in is probably for external DVD players or PlayStation or anything like that. And then we have to take our feed, which I already suggested here, our wire here that I already suspected that we're not gonna need. So we're gonna have to tape off the end so it's not gonna short with anything in there. So let's do that now. So now that we've got it all apart after installing the video camera, the backup camera, it's the best time to install this little majiggity. It's the IBUS USB reader, and even though you can see we already have a CAN bus decoder, it it really doesn't read all the functions that we want, or we're not able to reset them either. So for that reason, we're going to install this one, and this will plug into one of the USB connectors of the device itself, which I routed into the glove box. And to do this job, we have these 4 wires. Green is actually not applicable for our model, so we end up with these 3. The brown is obviously the earth, the red is the positive, and this is the actual IBUS reader. And they will connect to pin 7 for the IBUS, 9 for the positive, and 15 for the neutral. But this is only on this particular model, E39 pre-facelift 528i 1997 October. So you should check it for your car very specifically. So let's go ahead and trace those. Unfortunately, on the adapter here on the navigation side, there are no indication of the number, so we're gonna have to read it from the BMW side. As you can see right here, they have the numbers on there very small. However, I don't really feel like cutting into the BMW harness. If I can avoid that, that would be nice. So I'll trace those numbers back to here and then cut on the wires here. Also, the reason why is, as you can see, this is very tightly packed and individual wires are very tight in there. Because here you have a lot of space, you can pull them apart and work easily. So the first job is to cut or to strip the wires a little bit. Give yourself some room to work with. So the green was not applicable. Then there are 2 methods to connect the wires, or at least 2 that I would use myself. We'll quickly do that here. It's not connected to anything, so that's still quite safe. You can pull these wires apart so that they're a little bit separated, and you connect those like that, you see? Then you twist those together and then you have a fairly solid connection. Or the other way is to take these wires already and you twist them on their own. And you do the same with the other end, and then you twist those around each other. And that's what I'm going to do here, because we're going to have to twist them around the cables in the harness. And so that will be easier to wrap that around those cables. Also, what makes it easier to connect it to these cables here is that they mostly have already some opening in it. So we're just going to have to strip off this heat shrinking, wrap the wire, and then we should be good to go. I'll grab a knife. So now that we have the wire stripped, we can take ours. The brown is usually negative in European cars, whereas in Asian markets it's black. That's why these colors are different. However, we'll just take it and we'll wrap it very neatly around, like so. And the end of it is really the most important part, that you really tuck that. Then we'll grab some a solder to secure that in place. So now that we have this one, we'll before soldering it, we're gonna wrap the others too and test it out. So here we'll do the same trick. We'll just wrap it around very neatly, so that we have a good connection. Always tuck the end so that they don't come loose. So, and now we have to cut the green one, and we're gonna splice them together with this white cable here. This wire stripper also has a little cutting tool in it, as you can see. So we'll use that one to cut our wire. and then we'll use the stripper for stripping it a bit on both sides so that we can wrap it all nicely together. So then you twist those together, then you take your white one and just like usual we'll wrap that around this whole connection, and that should be it. We're gonna solder it all up. Yeah. Most important thing when you're soldering is to take something protective to put underneath this all, that when you're soldering and something accidentally drops, it doesn't ruin your car or even accidentally catch your car on fire. Now that we also tested the IBUS USB key, we're gonna solder this one in as well. So as you can see, we've got our three connections right here. We're gonna solder that very easily. Usually you start heating up from the bottom and you melt the solder into the wires. There we go, that's a nice one. That's a nice solder right there. Let's do the next one. So let's go ahead now to the back again, to the battery side, to see how the wiring will be done easiest. So we got it all tested out. It seems to work just fine the way we planned it to put it into the reverse light harness. So we picked up the positive of the reverse light and stripped a bit of the isolation. We're gonna solder our positive to that, and then we'll do the same for the ground. As you can see, the soldering is done. One of them is already taped up and tucked away. We're gonna do the other one now, so to clean it up a bit, also get this wire to sit somewhere neatly, maybe shorten it a bit, and then we are good to go. Then we can go back to the front, one final test, and then we should be happy. So now that it's all working, I taped up the camera here actually just to test the position and whether the door's working fine from there with the angle, and it seems to be working all fine. Like I said before, we're going to use some double-sided tape here to attach this in place. So like I said, also the license plate is attached to the same material, so it's plenty strong enough. Beautiful. Then we'll tighten these nuts in here, and we are finished with the camera install. Bam! Before we're gonna button it all up and put everything back in place, we're gonna just give it a final test. Hell yeah, brother! Oh, it's pointing at the sky because the trunk is open, but it's working. And then we'll go back to the IBUS reader, which is here. E39 IBUS, and as we can see, some of the functions are already working. Everything seems to work just fine. It's working out very beautifully, so I'm gonna put everything back together. Gonna go for a little test drive, see if everything stays put and stays working, and then we'll take a look through the functions of this IBUS system. Excellent. The sound is gone, but the indicators are working. Okay, let's go back here. And yeah, it's a couple days later again, and we went on a few test runs with the car, and the bad news is it doesn't work. That is to say, the backup camera works just beautifully. The image also is very crisp and clear, and also in the dark it works very well. It picks up the light from the surrounding very well in low light conditions. However, the board computer app doesn't seem to work. The IBUS key connects very well to the IBUS system, and it reads the board computer information, and you can reset it. that's all fine, working well. As soon as the app was licensed, some faults started to show up. What does it mean is that there was a free version, and in this free version you had 1 or 2 functions, and then once everything was freed up, opened up by buying this license, the faults started to show up. So you can, for example, also set, I was really excited about this, you can set the comfort indicator or the daylight driving light, all these things, locking when driving away. Everything that I actually wanted to have in this car was available in the setup. And then the computer system of the car started to freak out. So mainly the light control module didn't like it. It gave me 2 more blinks here on the indicators because I had used them previously, and I think that's when the LCM, the light control module, got upset and shut down. So I didn't have the sound afterwards for the indicators. It didn't show the arrows. Also the main beam light, the blue light, was no longer functioning. Then sometimes the backup lights didn't work, and so forth. So it doesn't work. And then I wrote to the company that makes this app, and they said that they are familiar with this problem, and the problem is due to our car being a too early model of E39. In my opinion, it would have been nice to say something about that on the website when you buy the app, but apparently they didn't feel this being necessary. So now we still don't have the board computer functions back. I was really hoping that would solve it and that would be something useful, but alas, it's not like that. We will keep looking, and if we'll find something, then we'll report it to you. In the meantime, yeah, I guess we don't have board computer functions. So that's it. Thank you all for watching. Stay in touch. See you next time. Bye bye.